classic Mega Man series and the Mega Man X series aren't alone in the franchise's knack for pumping out seemingly endless sequels. The Game Boy editions got the same treatment. Granted, these games were heavily based off the classic series, but there's still a whole nother line of games. The follow-up to the franchise's Game Boy debut, simply titled Mega Man 2, was released in 1992. As you would expect, there's nothing groundbreaking going on here. Just your good old solid, reliable, tried-and-true formula of vintage run-and-gun Mega Man. Just like its predecessor, you have 4 Robot Masters to choose from, rather than 8 that the Big Brother NES version is known for. But unlike its predecessor, where after facing the 4 main robots, you get 4 straightaway battles with 4 new robots in the same vein as the rematches via the portals in the NES series. Instead, you go through these portals to enter an entire stage, essentially making it a full 8 Robot Master sequence. The whole 4 at a time format is actually similar to the installments that would come years later, starting with Mega Man 7. The game is actually developed by Japan System House and not Capcom, although Capcom of course did publish it. It doesn't really affect the gameplay all that much. I mean, the source material was all there. It was just a matter of translating aspects of the NES's games into the Game Boy, and that had already been done with Dr. Wily's Revenge. In fact, some of the stages are pretty faithful to the originals. But one thing that is pretty noticeable is the music. In Dr. Wily's Revenge, the stage themes were stripped down versions of their NES counterparts. But in Mega Man 2, they're totally different, and if they were attempting to base them off the NES versions in any way, shape, or form, it's not recognizable, and the songs are not very melodic or memorable at all, although that may have a lot to do with the grating sound. It's pretty jarring. The game's story is kind of weird, although it isn't explained at all in-game. Dr. Wily has stolen a time machine and traveled to the future. What he has planned in said future isn't known, but you can't let that bastard out of your sight. But first, you have to take out 4 Robot Masters Wily left behind. You'll also encounter a mysterious robot named Quint later on in the game. Quint is described as a modified version of Mega Man from the future, who Wily reprogrammed to destroy Mega Man, which has weird time paradox written all over it. And why the hell is it that the best weapon that can be conjured up from the future is a jackhammer/pogo stick hybrid? Especially since this Mega Man from the future has apparently acquired every Robot Master weapon in existence. Aside from this lame boss, lame music, and lame plot, there's nothing really new about this rendition. There are upgrades from the last Game Boy incarnation though. There are E-Tanks now, and Rush will help you out this time around, although you don't start out with even the coil, you have to acquire it, along with the Jet and Marine after defeating Robot Masters. Despite the lack of innovation, Mega Man 2 still plays like a Mega Man game, which is ultimately what the audience wants from the series, and it provides a good alternative for the hardcore fan base that have played the rest of the classic series to death. So you start out with 4 Robot Masters, the 4 robots from Mega Man 2 that you didn't encounter in Dr. Wily's Revenge. My recommended first choice is Metal Man. When you first drop down the screen, stay to the far right to avoid spikes in the middle. Then hug the platform to the center to avoid some more, and then hook left to grab a health boost if you need any. These hydraulic spikes don't drop as quickly between intervals as they do in the NES version, so you can give it a little bit of time as it reaches the ceiling rather than having to rush it. There's one semi-hidden in the ceiling here too as you plow through all these screws, so keep your eyes on that. There's an extra life stashed up here. If you've taken a different sequence, you could have Rush Coil or Jet, which can get you up there. Otherwise, you'll have to bear without it. Shoot down the gears that these cretins jump on to take them out, and Metal Man is just ahead. He'll jump straight up and throw 2 metal blades at a time. Stay low, inch your way out a bit, and as he tosses the blades, back up and jump over both blades, or you can jump between them both if there's enough space between them. Blast your way at him as much as possible, preferably timing it so your shots hit him when he's on his way to the ground. When you finish him off, you'll get the coveted Metal Blade and Rush Marine. Next up is Woodman. The first stretch is made up of bats that fly out from the trees and rabbits that fire deadly carrots. The hot dogs spit a string of flame that form an under-arc pattern. Jump and shoot, mostly concerning with the jump part. If you miss an exchange while firing, no big deal. When you get in the water, avoid all the bullshit up top by summoning Rush Marine for an easy trip across. When you get back up into the woods, there'll be a stampede of ostriches. Retreat a bit and slide under them as they jump if you can't get enough firepower in to waste them, and Woodman is just ahead. He'll conjure up a leaf shield and fire it at you while a shower of deadly leaves cascade down. Slip your way between the leaves and unleash the metal blade at him. You should be able to take him down before he can mount a second attack, and you'll get the leaf shield. Airman is next. The eggs these birds drop are a lot slower than their NES counterparts, so it's much easier to wipe them out before the hatchlings come flying out. When you get to these platforms, wait for the horns to drop before moving on to the next one, and shoot down the minions that pop out of the ears. The metal blade is very useful to take out the birds and their eggs while hopping across these platforms. Careful when jumping over pits when Airman's cousin tries to blow you off the platform. Make sure you take him out first before jumping. Quickly shoot down these guys off their clouds and ride them across the open pit, and Airman is just ahead. Very simple, slide underneath his air shooter tornadoes and fire the leaf shield at him. Rinse, wash, repeat, and you'll take him out and get the air shooter, plus rush jet. Least but not last is Crashman, or Clashman as he's incorrectly been translated to. Thank you, English. As you climb up the first couple ladders, you've got tellies on either side, but only 2 max, so not a big deal to take them out, especially if you use the metal blade. The next 3 screens contain these platforms that roll on a track. Tellies will emerge, but they'll only be 1 at a time, and they're easily dispatched with the metal blade. When you climb down this ladder, be careful with your landing. There are small safe spots to land between the spikes, and an E-tank you'll want to grab using the rush jet. Be sure to cut down the tellies on your way over these pits, or you could collide with one on your way over and get sucked into the abyss. Another platformer on a track has 3 ladders above, but don't worry, this isn't a maze waiting to happen. The ladders on the center and the right lead to an energy capsule and E-tank respectively. There is a bird that drops an egg in the room, but it takes long enough to appear that you might not even see it by the time you get to the ladder. Up ahead is Clashman. He'll leap high into the air and drop clash bombs that explode shortly after activation. Run underneath him and fire the air shooter up at him while running to avoid the bombs. Be sure to stay on the ground while you attack, because you'll likely miss and or take damage from the bombs if you jump. After taking him out, you'll get the Clash Bomb and Rush Coil. After defeating all the Robot Masters, you'll reach the Skull Castle and get a cutscene encountering Dr. Wily. I guess Wily came back to the present, or you've traveled to the future already? I don't know, whatever. He lures you into a trap though, where the ground explodes underneath you and you drop into the teleportation room. There are 4 pods, but like I mentioned earlier in the review, these aren't rematches with the Robot Masters you already defeated. They're 4 entirely new Robot Masters with a full stage leading up to them, and you have no idea when playing the game which pod is associated with which Robot Master. One thing to keep in mind about the rest of the game is that any weapon energy you lose will carry over to the next stage until you get a game over. So always keep that in mind in terms of conserving your ammo and when you come across weapon capsules. These 4 robots are taken from the NES's Mega Man 3. The first one to go to is Needleman in the bottom right. Rapidly blast the porcupines as they fire out the needles, and get the hell away from them if they roll in your direction. Slide under here. There's really not much of a point in going up there and risking injury for the sake of 2 small energy capsules. These dragonflies swoop down and zero in on your horizontal location. Jump over them if you can't shoot them down in time. These huge needles extract and retract. Keep your eye on the timing, move along when the opening presents itself, and be cautious along the way for more. Needleman will attack with a series of needle cannon projectiles and a short-range spring-loaded needle from the top of his head. He'll also jump into the air. This is the best time to unleash the air shooter. Stay at a medium distance from him to get the best trajectory for your attacks and to avoid his. When you take him out, you'll get the needle cannon. Next up, choose Magnet Man in the lower left. These floating magnets will try to pull you up, just run right through their beams. Kill this guy and grab the E-Tank, and you'll reach the most useless appearing block in the history of the Mega Man series. These blocks, though, not so useless. Use the metal blade to wipe out the nuisance up top, and climb the blocks. There are more appearing blocks that carry you across a bottomless pit, but I prefer to just use the jet to get across, especially with these magnets sucking you in. Fuck that shit. There are some goodies down here. You'll have to kill this guy first and go around, but it's definitely worth it unless you've maxed out on E-tanks. Magnet Man is soon after. He'll attack by hopping across the screen, attaching himself to the ceiling, and firing off 3 magnet missiles before repeating the process, and then tries to pull you into him with his magnetic ability. Run or slide away to avoid him. While he's on the ground, pump him full of needle cannon or metal blade if you want, and when you finish him off, you'll get the magnet missile. Next, go to Hardman stage in the upper left. Wait for these giant bees to drop their sack of baby bees. Blasting them away will award you with items you can farm up on, particularly weapon refills you probably need at this point. Take the jet up here to grab an E-tank and slide past these platforms or be eaten by the chompers. There's an extra life behind this Hammer Joe. He'll respawn on your way back, but unless you're about to die, it's worth it. These monkeys are a bigger pain in the ass than they were on the NES because they don't give you much headroom and they're pretty quick. So you have to slide back and forth, but don't have much time at all to attack. So try to hit them early from a distance while they're still hanging around. Metal blades are quite useful against these dipshits. Hardman isn't quite as difficult as his name would suggest, so long as you use the magnet missile. He'll send a pair of hard knuckles your way, jump to avoid them, but you mostly want to avoid his suicide dive into the ground. It'll fuck you up bad if you get hit. Use the magnet missile when you're facing him. You really only want to retreat when he's up in the air. When you finish him off, you'll get the hard knuckle. Finally, you'll take on Top Man. Early on, you'll encounter a large pit in the water with appearing blocks to guide you across. Fuck that shit, use a Rush Marine. There aren't even any enemies to contend with here, so this is a no-brainer. This huge cat will spit robotic hairballs at you or something. Jump over them and use the hard knuckle on him. When you climb down here, hang on to the top of the ladder to easily wipe out Top Man's cousin and avoid all the tops. Skip the second cat and just slide under here. Wipe out Top Man's cousin and grab the E-tank. When you encounter Top Man's cousin for the third time, you can continuously wipe out the tops to farm out on items, particularly the weapon energy you've used up throughout the last few stages. At the home stretch, you've got these big ass tops that scroll up and down the screen as they spin. You'll have to jump across them. Just make sure there's enough height for you to make your jump and that you've aligned with the right side of the top as you spin. Top Man has a pretty straightforward attack pattern. He'll send 3 tops into the air that'll cascade down towards you. Jump over them and send the hard knuckle his way, and then jump over Top Man as he spins around and slides across the room. He'll be invincible from attack during this spin cycle. Repeat this process until he's destroyed, and you'll get the top spin, but you'll never use it. After defeating all 4 of the next regime of robots, slip into this little gap that has now been opened up, and you'll face off with Quint. He hops onto his pogo jackhammer and starts drilling into the ground, causing debris to scatter. The debris and the jackhammer itself are the only things you have to worry about, so simply keep your distance, fire the regular arm cannon at his head, which is the only weak spot that he has, and slide under him when he jumps. Repeat this process until he says, "Fuck this, I'm out." And despite the fact that you didn't completely defeat him, you still get his weapon. I guess he just left it behind. It's a Sakugami. It's a stupid fucking pogo jackhammer. Wily flies out of the Skull Castle and into the Skull Space Fortress. Mega Man rides Rush, who doubles as a space shuttle too, into the fortress for the final showdown, for now. The stage takes the time travel plotline a little too literal here, with clocks everywhere, including some fucked up, warped way beyond repair clocks in the background, but I digress. After scaling the appearing blocks here over the spikes, hug the wall as tightly as you can to the right for some goodies. As you make your way through this segment that forces you into a vertical snake pattern, don't bother killing the Hammer Joe here. It's not likely that you won't take a hit while waiting for him to throw the hammer, so just pass him. When you get into the water, bust out the Rush Marine and blast the rolling eyes on the way. Keep in mind that these hydraulic spikes don't drop right away after their full ascent, so wait them out to max out your passage to safety. There'll be a series of 3 of these guys on the clouds that float in a circle. Concentrate on wiping them out before you get on, because you don't want spikes up your ass. Soon after, you'll reach the gate, and Dr. Wily shows up in his bipedal contraption that hops back and forth and fires these bouncing skull bag thingies, and what looks like one of the toes from the machine that glides across the floor. Jump over the toes, try to position yourself so the skull bag passes over you, fire the arm cannon at Wily's head, and slide under him when he hops from one side to the other. Yeah, Quint's jackhammer does deal out more damage, but it's a pain in the ass to get it summoned, get on, and get onto Wily with it, all without taking damage. You're just better off with the regular cannon. And if you have E-tanks stocked up, you'll have a safety net. I always wait a couple rounds of battling a boss to feel it out before I use any. After draining half its health, you'll discover that this was just Wily's first form. No surprise here if you've played Mega Man games before. This second form is now on wheels. It stays in front of you, and on top of the skull bags, he also sends these big orbs your way. Keep your distance at all times so you can maneuver your way between the skull bags and see the orbs coming to slide under them. Once again, your weapon of choice here is the arm cannon, and Wily's head is the target. When you drain half its health, you'll once again have to battle another form, in this case a dragonish looking thing. They'll send a bullet bill to wander around. Keep your distance and jump up to bait the bullet into swerving upward so it'll pass over. Then he fires 4 of these, whatever the hell they are, at you. Stay on the ground and position yourself so you end up between them. And fire at Wily when the skull head juts out of position for no other reason than to indicate when your attacks will do damage. Keep this process up until you defeat it. And you'll go through the sequence of absorbing energy as if you just acquired Dr. Wily's weapon or something. That didn't even happen when you beat Quint for some reason. You did get his weapon. So then you'll chase Dr. Wily out of the space fortress, fire a bullet bill torpedo his way, which sends him careening back to Earth and blows up upon impact, heavily implying his death. But we know how that goes. And you'll get a roll call of all the enemies in the game. And that wraps up this edition of Aqualung's Game Reviews. See you next time.